Story 1. Poisoning at Summer Music Festival. In the midst of as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the bustling summer music festival, a sense of excitement filled the air. The rhythmic thumping of the bass reverberated through the crowd, pulsing with an energy that seemed to electrify the very atmosphere. Among the sea of revelers, I found myself drawn to a makeshift food stall tucked away in a dimly lit corner of the festival grounds. The aroma of sizzling meats and spices wafted towards me, enticing my senses and beckoning me closer. A middle-aged man with a weathered face and a greasy apron stood behind the counter, his eyes gleaming with a predatory glint as he hawked his wares to the hungry festival-goers. Ignoring the warning bells ringing in my mind, I approached the stall and ordered a skewer of grilled chicken, my mouth watering in anticipation. As I bit into the succulent meat, a bitter taste flooded my mouth, causing me to gag in revulsion. Panic surged through me as I realized something was terribly wrong. The once vibrant festival now seemed to blur and distort around me, the music fading into a distant, discordant melody. Frantic, I stumbled through the crowd, my vision swimming as I struggled to make sense of my surroundings. Faces twisted into grotesque masks of malice, their eyes gleaming with a malevolent light that sent shivers down my spine. The ground beneath my feet seemed to shift and undulate, threatening to swallow me whole. Desperation clawed at my chest as I fought to escape the nightmarish hallucination that had taken hold of me. In a final, desperate bid for salvation, I collapsed at the feet of a group of festival attendees, my words slurred and incomprehensible, their expressions contorted with a mixture of concern and suspicion as they realized the gravity of my situation. With a collective effort, they hoisted me onto their shoulders and carried me towards the festival's medical tent, their voices a distant murmur in my ears. Hours passed in a haze of pain and confusion as the doctors worked tirelessly to purge the poison from my system. Slowly, agonizingly, the hallucinations began to fade, leaving me trembling and weak in their wake. As the first light of dawn broke over the festival grounds, I lay in my hospital bed, my body battered but my spirit unbroken. In the aftermath of the poisoning at the Summer Music Festival, the authorities launched a thorough investigation into the incident, uncovering a network of unlicensed food vendors operating within the festival grounds. The man behind the tainted food stall was apprehended and charged with multiple counts of food poisoning, his callous disregard for the safety of others laid bare for all to see. And yet, as I gazed out at the festival grounds from my hospital window, a sense of unease lingered in the air. The memory of that fateful night would forever haunt me, a stark reminder of the fragility of life in the midst of celebration. But for now, as the festival drew to a close and the crowds dispersed, a semblance of normalcy returned to the world. Anonymous Spectator Story. Story 2. Chilling Disappearance at Central Park Fair. As I wandered through the bustling Central Park Fair, the air thick with the scent of fried food and the sounds of laughter and chatter, a sense of unease crept over me. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows over the colorful stalls and throngs of people. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, something sinister lurking beneath the surface of the festivities. I made my way through the crowd, past vendors hawking their wares and children running around with cotton candy-stained faces. That's when I saw her, a young girl, no older than 10, standing alone by a carousel. She looked lost, her eyes wide with fear as she scanned the crowd. I approached her, my heart heavy with concern. "Are you okay, sweetie? Do you need help finding your parents?" She turned to me, her expression haunted. "They're gone. They all disappeared. A chill ran down my spine as I realized she was not alone in her plight. Around us, people were starting to panic, searching for loved ones who had inexplicably vanished into thin air. The jovial atmosphere had turned into one of chaos and fear. I tried to calm the girl, but my own sense of dread was growing by the second. How could so many people disappear without a trace in the blink of an eye? It was as if the fair had swallowed them whole, leaving behind only echoes of their presence. As the crowd dispersed in a frenzy of confusion and terror, I found myself drawn to a dark alley at the edge of the fairgrounds. The shadows seemed to dance and whisper, beckoning me closer. Against my better judgment, I followed, the girl's hand clutched tightly in mine. We emerged into a small clearing, the air heavy with the stench of decay. And there, in the center of the space, stood a figure cloaked in darkness. I could feel its malevolent gaze upon us, a silent threat hanging in the air. I knew then that we were not dealing with a mere vanishing act. This was something far more sinister, a force beyond our comprehension. And as the figure advanced towards us, its form shifting and twisting in the dim light, I realized with a sinking heart that we were at its mercy. The last thing I remember is the girl's terrified scream echoing through the night before everything went black. When I awoke, she was gone, and I was left alone in the empty clearing, the fairground silent and deserted around me. To this day, I cannot shake the feeling of guilt and helplessness that haunts me. What happened at the Central Park Fair that fateful evening remains a mystery, a chilling disappearance that defies all logic and reason. And as I stand here, recounting this tale of horror and loss, I can't help but wonder, who will be the next to vanish without a trace? Anonymous Spectator Story. Story 3. Tragic. Accident at Carnival Square. As I wandered through the vibrant streets of Carnival Square, the air was thick with excitement and the scent of fried food. The colorful lights danced around me, casting eerie shadows on the cobblestone ground. The sound of laughter and music filled the night, but beneath it all, there was an underlying sense of unease that sent shivers down my spine. I had heard whispers of a tragic accident that had occurred in this very square years ago, a dark tale that had been buried beneath the glitter and glamour of the carnival. As I delved deeper into the heart of the festivities, I couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister lurked just beyond the revelry. The crowds pressed in around me, their faces painted with ghoulish masks and twisted smiles. I felt a sense of claustrophobia closing in on me, the weight of their bodies pressing down like a suffocating blanket. I tried to push through the throng, but it was as if the very streets themselves conspired to keep me trapped in this macabre celebration. Suddenly, a hush fell over the square, the music fading into an eerie silence. I looked up to see a figure standing on the stage, a twisted grin etched across their face. They raised a hand, and the crowd erupted into cheers, but I saw something in their eyes that sent a chill down my spine. As the figure began to speak, their voice was like a siren's song, drawing me in against my will. They spoke of a tragedy that had befallen the carnival years ago, a dark secret that had been buried beneath the revelry and laughter. The crowd hung on their every word, oblivious to the darkness that lurked just beneath the surface. And then, without warning, the figure's smile twisted into a snarl, and they pointed a finger directly at me. "You," they hissed, their voice dripping with malice. "You will pay for the sins of the past." Panic gripped me as the crowd closed in around me, their faces contorted into grotesque masks of rage. I tried to push through them, to escape the nightmare that had enveloped me, but it was as if I was trapped in a waking dream. And then, as if in a trance, the crowd began to part, revealing a gaping chasm in the ground before me. I stumbled back in horror as skeletal hands reached up from the darkness, grasping for me with bony fingers. I screamed as I felt myself being dragged down into the depths below, the echoes of the past swirling around me like a maelstrom of torment. And as I plummeted into the abyss, I knew that I would never escape the tragic fate that awaited me in Carnival Square. Anonymous Spectator Story.